You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era, improv news stories, rant about all the stuff that grinds our gears, gush about all the stuff that turns our cranks, and give pop culture a big wet kiss on the lips. Even though she kicks us in the balls every time and runs away, but we know one day she'll realize how much we really love her, way more than all those beta losers, and then she'll be ours. Oh yes, she will be ours. And then we'll live happily ever after with all of our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
I'm Mike.
And we were raised by rentals. Mike! They say the first step to recovery is to admit you have a problem. My name is Josh, and I'm a comic snob.
My name is Mike, and I'm a horror snob. That opening I was not expecting, and I'm sitting here trying desperately not to crack the fuck up. Because I have been trained at this point not to hit the mute button because of our current recording situation, even though I can hit the mute button since you're recording, but I'm so used to not being able to hit it now.
Well, good. I know. I almost wanted to give you a warning before I started. Like, wait till I get to the end of it. Like, let me get to the end before you start cackling.
Oh shit, that was good.
Anyway, welcome everybody. As I said, welcome to another rental rant episode of Raised by Rentals, or perhaps it's a Super Gushers. I am actually not really sure. It definitely not one of our standard improv episodes this time around. We're not going to be looking at a pop culture property and trying to find some way to, turn a beloved children's property into a horror movie or anything like we normally do around here. But instead, we are going to break our own promise a little bit, which is that we had this long series of rental rants, our non-improv special episodes where we like to just go on rants about bullshit that pisses us off. And we had this long series where we kept doing episodes about fandom, toxic fandom, and the types of pop culture fans who piss us off, all the way from the people who try to scare you away, and the ones who guard the gate, and the ones who try to kick you out when you get in there or shame you or whatever. Like, we kind of ran the gamut of every spectrum of how there's so many fans along the way, along the journey of being a pop culture fan, all these fans who are just trying to constantly tear you down and make you feel bad about it. And I think we hit on every topic imaginable. We tried to retire the series, and yet like shit just keeps coming up.
Indeed.
And this time it was a little bit of like, oh man, what kind of fans piss me off? And I started like bitching a little bit until I realized, God, like I'm kind of talking about myself. Shit.
Yeah.
It's specifically like what I was doing. I was having a conversation in a comic book fan group on Facebook with some other fans, and it started off as like a friendly conversation about what do you guys think about people who post in this fan group about superhero comics. Like, somebody was like, I just genuinely want to know, because this is kind of a deep cut, sort of an insider baseball, bottom of the iceberg, whatever, metaphor you want. Like, it was that kind of a fan group, like the kind of fans who, are like real comic book fans who've been doing it for a long time. And a lot of those guys don't really read superhero comics as much, and so when people post about superhero comics, there's always a little bit of an implied cringe of like, oh shit, like the rest of the group is about to tear you up for posting about Spider-Man, like better be careful. And it was sort of like, just a conversation about, well, how do we as a group feel about it? Like, is there such a thing? Like, are we all kind of cringing because like the noobs are coming in here with their Marvel books when we're over here talking about real comics? Or like, is that perfectly okay? Because most of us probably got here because like we picked up a Batman book when we were 11 years old, or something similar, right? And it was a pretty friendly conversation, but there was definitely a whole lot of like, there was a whole lot of couching my opinions behind friendly language. Like, of course, like I read superheroes. I got here because of superheroes. Like, of course, you're welcome to talk about superheroes. We're here to talk about comics, and we're not prejudiced against any particular genre, horror, manga, superheroes, like whatever. It's all open, except
Hmm.
like, the truth is, it was a whole bunch of bullshit. Like it was a whole lot of lip service of like, hey, I'm trying to be magnanimous because I don't want to start an argument in the comments. But like, in truth, I'm just like, every time somebody posts about like a Spider-Man comic in here, I just want to be like, oh God, like, are you in the right room? Like, like, do you need directions, young man? And oh, and
See, and now all I'm picturing is that scene in Zack and Miri Make a Porno where they're talking about selling the porno at comic conventions, and Delaney goes, "What do you mean, like Ziggy?" And they go, "No, man, like Spider-Man." He's like, "Fuck you, Ziggy's a comic." That's all I can think of now is "fuck you, Spider-Man the comic."
fuck you, right? If I'm a comic, God damn it. I know. And again, it's like this two-sided, opinion that I genuinely have where I mean, yeah, I mean, I said it was a bunch of bullshit, but again, I was just kind of trying to like be political, you know what I mean? But the truth
Mhm,
is that yeah, like I do still like superhero comics, but I've gotten to the point where I've been a comic book fan for so long and I've expanded my horizons for so long and I've really like dug around in like those hard to reach corners and I've discovered a lot of really interesting things over the years and I have liked independent underground like literary style comics for a long time. Hey, let's just be honest, like highfalutin snooty comics, you know and that's been like my preference for like a really long time, and like every once in a while I pick up a superhero book because She-Hulk is awesome, but every time I
mhm.
do it's like now the superhero book has become the guilty pleasure,
Yeah.
and it's like now I feel almost like a little bit embarrassed, like, oh, I hope all the other like real comic book fans don't notice me picking up the new issue of like the Night Thrasher miniseries or whatever.
I think there's something to that as well, though. I think there's nostalgia plays a role in that because I feel like every one of us that have read superhero comics at some point in our lives, we have an era that is like that is my Spider-Man, that is my Batman, that is my X-Men, where like we might not be up to date on like the newest shit or might not be into the newest shit that's going on, but somebody else that is their X-Men, that is their Spider-Man, that is that their Batman. So like for me, I look back on the early 2000s era of Marvel and I thought those books were great. I don't know what the fuck's going on now. So it's like, yeah, I loved Spider-Man back in the day. Do I love Spider-Man now? I don't know. I love, the character, but
Hmm.
do I love the comics? I don't fucking know. And I think part of that, is the fact that you age out of stuff. So it's like no matter what fandom you're in, you're always going to have a nostalgic love for the stuff that brought you in, but you grow. It's like again with horror movies. As a kid, I just loved monster movies. I thought monster movies were the awesome movies that I wanted to watch. I didn't care about like slasher movie or not slasher movie. I'm sorry. I didn't care about like serial killer movies or like suspense thriller movies. And now it's like those are the ones that actually scare me. The ones that I can believe, like Heretic, for example. Like movies like that will get under my skin. Whereas like as a kid, I was like, fuck those movies. And now I'm just kind of looking back at like some of the cheesy shit I watched as a kid. And I'm like, yeah, it's cheesy. It's fun though, but it's cheesy. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a little bit of that with what you're talking about with the comic book thing. It's like, yeah, you grew up on 90s Image, so
Hell
it's like
yeah.
Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane and all that shit. Would you say like would you recommend to other comic fans like, oh, you got to go back and read this? Or
Hell
would you be like, no, here, you should read like, fucking Mouse or something like that,
yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I definitely think that there's absolutely like a nostalgia that's built into it for sure. Because, again, on the surface of it, like being, magnanimous and egalitarian about it, like, of course, there's nothing wrong with superheroes. It's just a genre like everything else. Like, I like the
Right.
MCU too. Like, I have a Deadpool comic within arm's reach right now. Like, I get it, but at the same time, like, there's definitely a part of me that's just like, oh, it's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that it's like I think of them as like early reader books, and oh my god, that sounds so
Hmm.
snobby. Like, hey, that's why we're here, right? Like, it sounds so snobby, but it's like it's like a book for kindergartners, like Dick and Jane. And it's like I look at superhero books and I'm like, these sort of like, male power fantasies in like, flashy costumes, or they're fun. Of course they're fun, but they're like rudimentary. They're like, they're level
Hmm.
A, and then you have to move on to like, more advanced like literature.
Exactly.
And as I'm saying this out loud, I want to stab myself in the throat for being a snooty, pretentious bastard. But like, I just can't help it because maybe it's just because I've been doing this for so long. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've left a lot of that stuff far behind. But there's a lot of comic book fans who are either new to comics and like that's the surface level stuff that they know because to the average person in America, comics is Batman and Spider-Man, right? Like that's what
Right.
comics is. Or
Hmm.
or they're guys who that's just their preferred genre. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely. Like, go for yours. Like, if, Tom Cruise action movies is your favorite type of movie, man, like, hey, no hate. Like, legit. Enjoy the Mission Impossible movies.
On the flip side of the spectrum, you also have the people who are, so far down the rabbit hole that they feel like anything that isn't their extreme viewpoint is shit. So I'll give you one of the examples that always happens to me in the horror community, and I'm sure that several of our listeners can relate to this. You know, I've said this countless times on every fucking podcast that I'm a part of. I am a fucking remake apologist. I am a Scream apologist. Like, I know Scream is popcorn, fucking as populist as you can get when it comes to horror, but I fucking love it. I have fun with it. I love the franchise. Yes, some of the entries are shit, but overall I still love the franchise. Same thing with, a lot of remakes. I know that they're not as good as the original, but I still have fun with them, so I enjoy myself. But when I'm talking about horror, a lot of times there's always going to be that one guy that'll be like, "Well, have you seen a Serbian film?" And it's like, "No, I haven't seen a Serbian film, and I will never fucking watch a Serbian film because I don't want to watch torture porn." Like, that's not my cup of tea. I'm not. Don't tell me I'm not a real horror fan because I won't watch a fucking Serbian film. And you will have those types of fans in every one of these fandoms. So you never want to get to that extreme down the rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I'm sitting here like, spouting off a lot of hot takes. I mean, let's be honest, it's like good content, But,
Oh, of course, yeah.
but like again, like it's the double think that I have about comics, and I'm sure that you feel the same way about horror to a certain degree. And I know if not you, then I know that there's other like real horror fans who have the same, type of double think mentality. And use the Image Comics example as a really good analogy that you mentioned, right? So yes, I am 100% rooted in the nostalgia of the comics that I liked when I started reading comics. And for me, they will always be rad, bro, because it's what I liked when I was 12. So
Right.
absolutely, before I got into Image Comics, I was a Marvel zombie, and I loved She-Hulk and Sleepwalker and Darkhawk and the New Warriors, and fucking Speedball is my boy. But like a lot of other superhero fans are just like, what the fuck? That's like the Drek of the 90s. Like, why do you care about that stupid bullshit? Like, if Sleepwalker was so cool, how come he hasn't had a comic in, decades? Like, okay, good argument, but again, I'm locked into the nostalgia of that's what I liked. And then, Image Comics launches, and it's been decades that people have been complaining about Rob Liefeld or, Tom McFarlane or any of these guys, and all those Image Comics were just, it was called Image Comics. Like, it was all image and like no
It was
substance.
exactly. I was like, the name says it all, man.
Yeah. It was all flash and bang. It was the action movie of comics. And it's like, who cares if it's full of plot holes? Like, it's got explosions. Like, that's all you need.
It was the Michael Bay of comic books.
Yes, exactly. Rob Liefeld is 100% the Michael Bay of comic books. And I don't even mean that in a negative way. Like, I would say it to his face, and I feel like he would think it was a compliment. It was like, absolutely, like, he's the Michael Bay. But I love all of that shit. To this day, I love it, but I love it. I don't love it in a way that I'm going to recommend it to somebody else. Like, if someone comes to me and wants to know about comics, I'm not gonna be like, oh, dude, like, you got to read fucking Cyberforce. Like, no, you don't start there. Like, you got to start with like some softballs, or, I always start with like, here's some superhero stuff that I think is genuinely really well done, like a cut above the rest, and then like, here's some other genre stuff that I'm into, like, here's a horror example, or a nonfiction example. Like, I have a bunch of science and history comics. Like, let's look at some other stuff. But of course, my wheelhouse, the stuff I like the best, like you mentioned, Mouse. Like, that's what I like. I like the literary slice of life stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been a fan of Robert Crumb, but I think a lot of people probably know who Robert Crumb is. I do like American Splendor. Like, they made that great movie with Paul Giamatti about Harvey Pekar. Like, that's exactly the type of shit that I like. That's my niche. But like,
Right.
again, you got to be careful recommending stuff to the average person. And I think as a horror fan, you probably love a lot of really terrible horror movies that are just objectively bad, but you
Oh yeah.
saw them at a time in your life when you were young, and they were on fucking USA Up all night, and they just stuck in your brain, and you're always gonna love those horrible schlocky movies. But like, you're not gonna recommend fucking sorority babes in the slime bowl bolorama to like a new horror fan. Like, you don't start there.
Nope. However, when I met Linnea Quigley, that was one of the first movies I brought up, and she went, "Holy shit! No one talks to me about that movie." And I was like, "But it's so fun."
Right? And like, like, hey, that's the next angle of this argument. Like, I mentioned at the beginning that we wanted to kind of like mash up like a rental rant super gusher, right? Kind of bitch about these bad fans. So we're kind of ranting about ourselves. Like, I'm sorry, like,
Yes.
I am guilty of being a terrible toxic fan sometimes. I really try to be nice about it, but like, in my head, I'm still judging you. you know?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
You
but
know what?
go ahead.
I'm gonna say it here. I've said it before. I'm gonna say it again. And you know what? All y'all listening, you can judge me all you want. But if you think It Follows is a terrible movie, fuck you. I'm gonna judge you.
There you go. You got judged. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But the flip side of that is like the super gusher side of it, where it's like, because you have become such like a quote unquote real horror fan, about all of that like weird bottom of the iceberg stuff, right? Like sorority babes and the slime ball bolorama. Like, about stuff like that. Like, I know about comics that like no one's ever fucking heard of before. And I love going into some of these fan groups that I belong to on Facebook, because these are like my people. Like, and they're the only people I
Oh yeah.
can talk to who they're the only people who know like who Ben Snake Pit is, and it's like nobody else knows like what the fuck I'm talking about, but like, you guys get it. And
Right.
and so there's a certain sense of pride at knowing that you've like achieved this like high level. Like, I've achieved elite level, comic fandom or comic snobbery, because like, I know the like secret handshakes and like the passwords and stuff. I know the cryptic language to speak to like open up the back doors where all like the hidden treasures are. And I'm sure that you feel the same way about like horror.
Oh yeah.
It's like you were saying about Linnea Quigley. It's like you mentioned that movie, and she's like, "Holy shit!" Like, you're the only person that knows that, and like, that there was a party that was like, "Damn, Skippy, I'm a
You
real
bet.
horror fan."
Well, and that's the thing, because like anyone who knows me knows Return of the Living Dead is my all-time favorite horror movie. So of course I'm gonna want to bring that up, but I'm sitting there going like, everyone's gonna talk to her about that. Like, there's posters of Return of the Living Dead hanging around her. They're all and of course I did talk about that too, but like, I mentioned how Sorority Babes and Slimeball Bolorama is one of like my favorite movies from my childhood because I watched it so fucking much. And it's hilarious because like that was for her, that was one of those movies where she didn't actually have to get nude, so it's like she was talking about what a fun movie that was to make, because she's like, yeah, I got to be a badass, like I didn't have to just show my tits.
Yeah.
So when I met Scotty Young, which one of my all-time favorite artists. I met him years ago at Fan Expo, and I'm standing in line, and everybody is asking him to draw Venom, because at the time he had just finished working on the what was it, the Tsunami, Marvel Tsunami
Oh, yeah,
Venom.
yeah. Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, like he did some issues of that, and like the Spider Clan and all that kind of stuff. So everyone was like, draw Spider-Man, draw Venom, draw Spider-Man, draw Venom, and like I'm watching one after the next. Now, and I know you know about this, where I have a thing where if if I go and buy a piece of art from a famous artist, I ask them to draw me a zombie of some type,
Yeah.
and I tell them I don't care what zombie it is. You pick. It started with when I met Jim Mahfood and I asked him to draw me Zombie Kid because I fucking loved
Nice.
Zombie Kid back in the day. And that was where that came from. So when I met Eric Powell, I just was like, dude, I love the Goon, but draw me a zombie. And he's like, you don't want me to draw the Goon? And I'm like, I just want a zombie. He's like, yes. And he was very happy to not have to draw the Goon.
Nice.
So when I met Scotty Young, I was like, look, I normally just ask for a zombie, but I really loved the way you drew all the chimps in the New Warriors. Can you draw me a zombie monkey? And he got so jazzed. He was like, oh, hell yeah. He's like, yes, absolutely. And then the people behind me were like, what do you ask for a zombie monkey? That's stupid. Like, people were mocking. And Francisco Herrera was there. And he came over to see what he was drawing. And he's like, check it out. He's like, a zombie monkey. Isn't this cool? He was like, oh, dude, that's awesome, because I've been drawing Venom all day. Like, they were literally talking about it in front of everybody, and people were mocking me for asking him to draw a zombie monkey. But as an artist, he was so jazzed to do it because it wasn't the thing that everyone talks to him about. And literally, I shit you not, I wish I was recording it, but as soon as I got my drawing and I thanked him and I stepped out of line, the very next guy behind me, he was like, can you draw Venom? And I
Yeah.
was just like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
it's literally what he was just complaining about the whole time you were in line, dude.
I know, right? And again, it's I can't help but try to be like a nice guy about it. Like I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, of course, like if you found Scotty Young because he drew Venom and that was like your
Right.
exposure to it, and it's just like again, I love the early Image guys. It's like that Rob Liefeld has been drawing fucking Deadpool head sketches, for 30 something years at this point, and he might not be sick of it, but like, there's probably some other character that he would love to sketch. He's created a lot of
Right.
fucking characters, and I know Todd McFarlane fucking hates drawing Spider-Man after all these years, so it's like, you know, again, the good cop side of my head is like, well, of course, like just enjoy what you like, and if that's how
Hmm.
the creator, then just go and be the fan that you want to be and just enjoy it. Like this is all supposed to be fun. Like no one's being graded, but
Right.
the bad cop side of my head is like, get the fuck out of line, little kid,
Exactly. And I wanted to mention something earlier. We were talking about Rob Liefeld and the whole like Michael Bay of comics. I did want to point out, as much as Michael Bay takes shit, rightfully so, for stuff like the Transformers movies, he also was responsible for The Rock and Bad Boys. And now, come on,
Yeah.
you gotta admit, those are some fun fucking movies.
Absolutely, of course they are. Yeah, absolutely. You are, and like I am not a film snob, right? But if we had a film snob in this conversation with us, like right now, there would be some film snob who's like, they going on and on about, oh, like, oh, the only types of movies I want to watch are, like, Children of Men and Parasite and like whatever, like like Oscar bait kind of stuff, like real like auteur cinema, exactly right, like fucking Synecdoche, New York, and uh, God, like that's the most pretentious fucking movie ever made, and I like Charlie Kaufman, but anyway, like that's the kind of shit that like film buffs are into, but
Mm,
there's a lot of those types of guys who are like, yeah, but like when I just want to like sit back and eat popcorn, like we're fucking watching like Pearl Harbor, like let's do this,
right. Exactly. Exactly. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's, but like, and that's what's so funny is when you get so far into a fandom that you really understand that there's like, oh my God, there's so much good stuff. If you just, because you got to keep exploring, you got to keep exploring, and you
Yep.
keep exploring, and there's so many good things. Go into the back of the store or whatever, and you discover all these amazing things, and you find things that maybe you never would have realized that you were going to be a fan of before you saw it, and you're like, this shit is like blowing my mind. Like, I didn't know they made comics like this, or
Hmm.
movies like this, or whatever. But there was still a reason why you walked in the door. And
Oh
and,
yeah.
I think that we have to remember that. And again, this is the good cop in me. But yeah, exactly. There's a certain sense of pride that I feel being like, an elite comic book fan. And somebody listening to this is probably going to be like, yeah, fuck you, you don't know shit. And then, I'm going to get challenged in the comments or something. But, whatever, I don't care. Like, bring it on,
Oh, there,
bro.
there's always someone more elite.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, to use like video games for an example, I've been on both sides of the spectrum here, where it's like when I first started playing World of Warcraft, like I knew absolutely nothing about the game, and then I had about a 3 year period where I was like hardcore raider. I was obsessed with the game. Like I was always min maxing my character, trying to get like everything perfect. Like, oh, I need to up my damage just a little bit. So if I get this little enchant and I move and I get this one trinket from this one place that it's like a very small drop chance, but I'm gonna keep running it until I get that item just to up my DPS a little bit. I was that guy where it was like the get good noob, that kind of guy for a little
Yeah.
while.
Right.
And now I'm like, I've played it so long and I don't care. And everyone's always like, oh, it's for casuals now. And I'm like, yeah, and that's cool. Like I can just log in, do some shit I want to do, have a good time by myself, and not have to worry about being the best of the best of the best. But it's you can get obsessed with a fandom where you feel like you need to know everything. You need to be the best there is, and it's very easy to fall victim to that, where you're just like you get so deep down the rabbit hole that you're not really noticing how many people you're turning off, or pushing away from the fandom. And then you can sometimes kind of come back and be like, all right, I've done the super snob fan. Now I have all this knowledge and I'm just going to sit back with it. And I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let other people enjoy. And so it is possible to kind of come full circle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there's a certain peace that you reach at a certain point, and as an elite super fan, like you like if it was SNL, like they would have given you like your five timers jacket and invited you back into like the private lounge, or something. But yeah, like once you've sort of like achieved your status, like you have your invisible pin that you walk around with, it's um, but then yeah, I think there's a period where you're almost like proving yourself, and you're like you want to get into debates, and you want to get into these deep conversations where you're like, oh well, this is my take on that movie, or this creator, or
Hmm.
whatever. And it's like and you want to kind of like prove that like your shit, and so the other people will kind of like welcome you into their clique. But then
Yes.
you reach a certain point where you're just like, yeah, I don't need that kind of validation from other fans, and you're perfectly happy just like walking the convention floor and like enjoying things and geeking out about things, and you see other people who are freaking out asking for Venom sketches, and you're like, ha ha ha, foolish children. But but you don't feel the need to like be constantly proving yourself, and and demonstrating that you've like I've paid my dues or whatever. It's like you become the elder statesman in a way, where it's like you have a quiet poise, and a and an unspoken authority, and where it's like whatever, like you don't need to prove yourself anymore. Like let all those like younger fans run around like all those tryhards, let them get exhausted, while you're just gonna enjoy yourself, and have a conversation with the celebrities that they want to talk to, but they're talking to you because like you can actually speak at their level, you know.
Right, exactly. I will say there is also a bit of pride sometimes when it comes to having having seen so much of a certain genre, like I'm sure you experience this with in the comic circles, having read so many different comics. But like sometimes you get that person that wants to trip you up, that wants to be like,
Hmm.
haha, I found something that I know you haven't seen or I know you haven't read. And there's always going to be a little bit of joy when you can be like, oh yeah, no, I've seen that and I saw it, at this time, or I was this old or whatever. Because to watch that, like, that flame of elitism melt in front of them, it's kind of fun. um
Absolutely.
I won't name names, but there is a particular individual who constantly tries to trip me up with horror movies, um at a certain horror movie event that I go to frequently. um there's quote unquote deep cut movies,
Hmm.
and because and I will give them credit, because the first time I ever saw Blood Rage was at this event. um and it was, Blood Rage is not a super popular movie. It's fairly well known, but it's not a super popular movie. So it was one of those movies I had heard of, I just never seen. Saw it, fell in love with it. I've since bought a copy. Have watched it every year at Thanksgiving since I saw it originally. um but the only other deep cut film in the 8 years I've been going to this that tripped me up was a movie called Doom Asylum. And I had never seen it, and it's god awful, and I will never watch it again unless I watch it for the Boogeyman's Closet, because wow, it's bad. But literally every other deep cut, it's like, I'll get cornered outside of the theater, being like, "Hey, have you seen this one yet?" And it's like, "Yeah, no, I saw this." And the one, for example, was The Hidden, and I'm like, "Dude, I used to watch it all the time. It was on HBO all the time in the '80s." Like, me and
Yeah.
my friends actually used to play a game where we were mimicking that movie. Like, one of us was an alien, and we had to figure out who was the alien. Um, like, we used to play this all the time, and it's like, damn it, it's so it's like it is fun to get that experience where he's like, I got you this time, and it's like, no, you don't. Let me explain how.
Exactly. Like, do I need to show you my credentials again? Like, come on.
Exactly.
Honestly, like that's really the reason why I wanted to have this conversation. It's not even really that I wanted to like bitch and rant about something, but I know that there are people who listen to this show. I think probably a fair amount of the audience that I am aware of is a lot of people who are deep into fandom, people who are collectors or, pop culture fanatics, or I see them on their social media and like, man, they're really into whatever their particular special interest is. And I'm like, that's amazing. One of us, and I love
Right.
that. I love that feeling. But I just felt like if there was any safe place to have a conversation about this where it's like, yeah, I definitely feel like an elitist. I don't feel bad about it, but at the same time, when other people demonstrate their own sense of elitism in like negative and toxic ways, like it's just like, oh God, I just want to like, kick you in the Adam's apple. And I'm like, oh God, is that me? Like, am I talking about myself? you know?
But you know what? Now we're gonna get down a weird rabbit hole here, but I feel like that also takes a certain type of self-awareness, to be able to realize that a lot of fans don't tend to have. Like,
Hmm.
I'm sure you've encountered this when talking to fans about stuff, where they gush over and over about something and talk from that point of elitism, and they're completely unaware that they're doing that. So like,
Yeah.
when you age to a point of your elitism where you're like, wait, am I elitist? Oh fuck, I am. And you can take a step back and actually notice that that's happening. I feel like that shows growth.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think if it were, somebody who, let's say they were I think of a snob, and I think the stereotypical type of person that I think of when I hear the word snob, I think of, somebody who's very sort of like high society, very snooty, like, oh, I only like read the classics and listen to classical, that kind of
Hmm.
that kind of a thing. And I can't think of any good examples, but I've definitely seen situations where somebody will in conversation they'll just like randomly reference Aristotle or quote Lord Byron or somebody, and they just do it like
Dropping
in
some Voltaire.
yeah, exactly. But they're just doing it like in passing, like, oh, well, of course you're going to understand my references. And then people stare at them, like blankly, like, what are you talking about? Or they think that you just made it up, like, oh, you're so smart. Like, did you just think of that? And it's like, no, I'm like, it's like quoting Nietzsche, and it's like, but then like, I think sometimes like that, you fall into this sort of like comfortable delusion that everybody understands the kind of things that you understand.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think in pop culture the lines are drawn a little bit more clearly between, the it's easier to kind of pinpoint the type of fan that a person is. Um,
Hmm.
and I definitely appreciate the experience of being at a convention or a get together or whatever, and you can kind of like spot your own. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah.
I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like it's like you're wearing a certain T-shirt, or like you're talking to a certain person, or I see what's in your bag, or you have like the perfectly placed pin on your jacket lapel that's just like broadcasting your elite status as like a secret passcode to only the people who understand.
This happens to me at almost every single comic convention that Tara and I table at, because I have my pop culture stuff. Of course, I'm going to have the wide-reaching things. Like I have my Jason Voorhees art. I have my Spider-Man art, my Pokemon art, stuff that it's gonna grab a wide audience. I'm casting a huge net here. But alongside of that, I'm gonna have my Phantom of the Paradise art, or I'm gonna have Clock Tower, like these random fucking things. And you always get the you'll have the nerds that'll walk by and they'll hone in right on that, and you can see them immediately coming. It's like, yes, one of my people. Like, I'll never forget at Nickel City a few years back, this guy was thumbing through my original sketch folder that I have, and he got to my Clock Tower Scissorman sketch, and he was like, "Holy shit, Clock Tower! Somebody else remembers this." And we just had this long conversation about '90s horror game.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. At comic book conventions, it's a little bit strange because I think that there is a separation between like the types of comic fans. Like I personally, I've never been to like a San Diego Comic Con. I don't really have an interest in going. To me, it just seems like it's a lot of crowds and like lines and like I don't know. Like it's just the whole experience. Not even like the people who were there. Just the whole experience just seems so overwhelming and unpleasant to me. You know,
Right.
I'd much rather go to like small conventions and like hotel ballrooms, that kind of a thing. That's certainly my preference, and it's a little bit easier for me too to find my people, to find the like-minded people that I can have conversations with when I go to those types of conventions, because the people who go to a comic convention in a hotel ballroom, they're there for a reason. Like they're there intentionally. Like,
Right.
it's not the kind of thing where it's like you're like, well, sure, I'll go to the San Diego Comic Con. Like, why not? It'll be a hoot. Like, we'll check it out. Like, we'll go look at cosplay hot girls or whatever, and just like enjoy the spectacle. Like, you don't get that when you're in some hotel conference room off the highway. You know.
Yep. But some of those are some of the most fun conventions to go to. Like, they suck to table at, I will say that, because the cost of getting the table and having all of your materials out, and they're usually sparsely attended, or they're attended by people who are there for a very specific reason. So they suck as far as being a vendor goes, but as a patron, those are fucking great. I love those little conventions. I love just going to those and like seeing what people have for sale and like talking to people about niche shit, but it's a double-edged sword for someone like myself who tables at conventions.
Yeah, yeah, I can appreciate that too. I went to the Staple Comic Con in Austin. Well, I've been going every year since they resumed after the pause for COVID, and man, they cram people into that freaking room like holy crap. I have never seen such a small amount of real estate for whatever they pay to rent tables. It's like it's barely a table, like you are crammed in there like shoulder to shoulder. And as a fan, it's
Hmm.
great because there's like so much stuff. It's like literally wall to wall. Like I remember they had a guy who was tabled in front of the like emergency exit egress door, and while I was at the convention, they had to do like a fire drill test because of the amount of people that were there, and they had to like pick his whole table up and move it.
Oh, that sucks.
Oh man.
Oh, damn.
Um, but like everybody's so shoulder to shoulder, so it's really cool because it's like just having like a big conversation, and there's like so many cool things, and there's local artists that you've never seen before, and like I go there for specific people. And this year when I went with Josh Hibbard, our buddy Professor Pickman from Pickman's Vinyls, and
Mhm.
we both I think probably had a similar experience where I was talking to one guy, specifically I was talking to Drew Edwards, or Drew Halloween, the creator of Halloween Man. And then there was people like on either side that I didn't know as well or didn't recognize as much, and we were chatting, and then Drew Halloween turns and is like, hey, this dude, he read that comic we were just talking about. And again, the example is escaping me, but like it turned into this big group conversation because they're like, oh shit, you heard of that too, you know.
Nice.
And I know Josh had a similar experience where he was talking about some designer, and someone else was like, "Oh my God, you know that toy designer? Oh my God, I love his shit too." And it like turned into this big, because everybody's so close together. It's like you can't help but have a group conversation, you know?
Oh yeah, you're kind of over here. No, but dude, there was one of the Buffalo Comic Cons. God, we're going back to, I want to say it was like 2013, 2014. It was many, many moons ago, but it was at the Buffalo Marriott, and they had so many vendors and like people who were selling like whole comic collections. Like the main room was all comic books. It was all like people selling shitloads of comic books, and then they packed the hallway leading up to the ballroom with the artist alley. So it was like all of us artists and vendors, but the tables were touching. So the only way to get behind our table was to crawl under it.
Oh
So
God.
anytime we had to take a leak, we had to like crawl out into the crowd, be like, "Watch out, I'm crawling." It's like,
Oh
but it
man.
was like that where when people would come over and start talking about like certain things that like certain art pieces, like oh like like this is back when I first started my pop culture confessional series, and I had like I had random characters from all over pop culture, so people would be like, oh my god, you should do this character, you should do this character. And then like other people who were tabled next to me would be like, yeah, you should do this guy. And it just became like a big group conversation for that very reason, is you can't help but overhear because you're crammed shoulder to shoulder. So
Yeah, exactly.
but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it makes the whole situation like so much more fun. The downside is I end up spending way more money than I want to because you end up like talking to all
Yep.
these people, and then it's just like, well, gotta go, and you walk away. But it's like, fuck, I can't do that. Like I gotta buy something. I've been here this whole time, like.
I have done that so many times. Like, and again, as an artist, as somebody who is trying to sell my wares, when I do happen to walk down Artist Alley at a convention, I feel obligated to like buy a couple of things, because it's like I get it. I'm doing the same thing. Like I totally know that. And especially when you walk by a table and you lock eyes with somebody, it's like, oh fuck,
Hmm.
okay, well
Yeah.
I should at least go and check it out. And and I always try to think to myself, like when I'm looking at these tables, is there anything here that I can get for somebody as a gift? Like I got birthdays coming up, Christmas, like just something, because it's like I want to support a fellow artist. So but sometimes it's like I don't have that many people that wear earrings that I have to buy for, and they have like a bunch of novelty earrings that they've made. Fuck. Okay, let me see here. But eventually I usually find something. Um, but yeah, I know that feeling. You don't want to walk away without purchasing something. It can be tough.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely like a certain type of peer pressure or like the social pressure of like you want to, especially when you're sitting there having a good conversation with somebody and you're like, hell yeah, dude, I love your comics. Like, let me buy this one, and you're chit chatting, and then like especially at the convention I was at with everyone so close together, like the guys on either side are looking at you all hopeful, and I'm like, shit, like I only have like a certain amount budgeted for this, and I'm only in the first row. I haven't even gotten to the other side of the room yet, to like look around and see who's here, you know. It,
Exactly.
yeah, it can be a tough like social, like I said, a situation with a lot of social pressure. I always like to try to go with somebody because I definitely
Hmm.
feel that social awkwardness and like I have like here's a couple of convention tips from your old Uncle Josh is I like to walk around with like somebody that I'm there and like my focus is on talking to them. Like I'll go walk in with with Tegan or somebody, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I wanted to make sure I got to this table, or like, hey, let's walk around and like look at everything before we stop. And it's like it's very performative of like you're having a
Hmm.
conversation while I'm looking at everything out of the corner of my eye, trying to note like which tables have stuff I want to stop and look at. But you can't, like I learned the hard way that the method of going like table to table to table to table is like a loser's game. Like you're gonna go broke before you get across the room because you
Oh
stop
yeah.
you stop at a table and you chat with them, and then either you like it and you buy something, or you feel bad that you like spent all this time, and like they're there to make money. So like literally time is money, and you're sitting there chit chatting like buddies, and you're like, fuck, like I should buy something, or you walk away and look like a jerk. So it's like make a decision. So like you can't go table to table. You got to like you walk every aisle, look at every table, but you got to kind of do it surreptitiously and remember, okay, in the first row there was that one guy and that guy and her over there on the corner, and like the dude that I recognize from Facebook over there, and then you got to go back. But when you go back, it's like you make a beeline for that one table. You talk to him, you buy something, you turn around, you walk away, even if you want to come back and talk to the guy at the table right next to him, but you got to like walk away and then come back and like make it very strategic, because if you're just browsing, everybody's like a little hungry bird, like me, you know.
Yes. Oh, it's so hard, dude. And again, as a vendor, it's really hard to not get that like that perk up, like, oh, someone's looking at my stuff. Like maybe I'm gonna make a sale. So I make it a habit where I like my mantra when people come to my table is I just kind of lean back on my chair and I'm like, hey man, feel free to thumb through anything you see on the table, and then I shut up.
Yep.
I just sit back and wait. If they say something to me, cool, I'll engage. If they don't, and they just walk away, cool. Like I don't want them to feel, because I hate feeling that pressure. But at the same time, it's also really hard not to be like, "Ooh, a sale," like and pop up.
Yeah.
Um, so
Exactly.
like, it's yeah, and you and yourself, people that go to a lot of comic cons, and this is no judgment, but there are a lot of people who are socially awkward, and it's difficult for them to engage with a stranger. Totally understandable. I get it. So I also don't want to make people feel uncomfortable by engaging too quickly and being like, "Hey, look at my stuff," So I'm like,
Hmm.
"Hey, man, just chill, just look what you want." So it's like trying to be as calm as possible.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, and like I hope I'm not picking on you when I say this, because you and I live in different states and I haven't been to a lot of the conventions that you've like tabled at, but man, I love it when
Mhm.
people have everything priced like clearly, so I don't have to
Oh
stop
yeah.
and like ask how much something costs, because I feel like the act of asking becomes like, well, now that's an opening, right? Like you're hoping for
Yep.
a sale. I start to feel like, oh shit, like now I'm like, committed to this, but I literally just wanted to know, because depending on what your answer is, like I could be walking away or whatever. Like I don't know. Like
Yep.
it's like neither one of us know that, so it's so much easier when I can do the walk by, with my con partner, and I can look at prices and get an idea
Hmm.
of like what's reasonable, so I can go back, because and I'm planning my budget and I'm planning my conversations, because unless you're a fucking millionaire and you can buy everything at every table, like I feel like you have to be strategic at
Oh
conventions,
God,
you
yeah.
know, for a lot of different reasons, like for your own, wallet, and again, for the social awkwardness of it. uh, yeah,
Oh no, I always have my shit like the price right there. A lot of times people will miss it which is funny to me because like I'll have my bin of prints, and like right on the front of the bin it'll be like, $6, $6 per, 2 for 10 or 5 for 20, and it'll just be like listed right there, and people like look right at it and then be like, how much are these? And I'm like, oh, right here, and I'll point it out. But yeah, so I same way, because I hate that when I walk up and I'm looking, because I've seen so many things where I'm like, oh, that's really cool. How much is that? And it's like $50. Like, okay, never mind. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm not paying that. Because one of the things I look for, big surprise for anyone who's been listening to any of the Rad Pantheon podcasts for a while, is I often look for toys that I want, like old action figures. And I found several times now in Nickel City, I will find booths who are selling hard to find action figures, because unlike Austin, from what Hibbard tells me, you guys are lucky. You got a lot of cool toys out that way. We don't get a
Yeah.
lot of great distribution out this way, so sometimes finding certain figures is very hard. So if I see them at a convention and it's like, okay, I know the retail is $20. If it's like 25, hell, even 30, I might bite. But it'll be like, oh yeah, how much is it? $70. Nope, that's okay. And it's like, but they don't have it priced, and it's you, so you have to ask.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's just the awkwardness of that again, especially when it's either overpriced or out of your budget. I think it's even worse when you know as a collector, because you're elite, like we're all snobs here, that
Right,
it's overpriced, and when someone quotes you something and you just want to scoff at them for their foolishness. But
right.
and again,
Be like, I ain't getting gouged, you dick.
it's so much easier to just be able to just walk by and be like, nope, I'm not stopping here at like, Scammer Central, and but yeah, when you have to ask, it's so frustrating. I think my most awkward con experience, and I'm sure you have a much, much worse one because you've been to a lot more cons, but for me, it wasn't that the situation was so like special or strange. It was just being so put on the spot where I was at a comic convention years ago, and uh, I was like pretty much out of money, and I stopped at this one table because it was, again, I was pretty much out of money. It was Sunday. I was there for the whole weekend, and I had been to pretty much every table in the room, but I was like, what the fuck else am I gonna do? Like I literally, like, I traveled here, like I have a hotel room. Like I don't want to go home. Like I might as well just walk around and
Mhm.
like, see what's gonna happen, even though I was broke. And I stopped at this table that I hadn't stopped at before, and quite frankly, like the book didn't look that good, and they weren't doing a good job at advertising it. They didn't have a good backdrop or anything, and the person behind the table was just literally reading a novel. And I walked up and was just kind of like, poking around at this or that, and the lady looked up from her novel and was just like, prints are $2 and the book's $15. And my first thought was, $15? Like, it's like a mini comic. What the fuck? But I was just trying to be polite, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll take a look. And I went to go like pick it up, like I'll just flip through it for a minute politely and then walk away. And
Mhm.
she got up, she put her book down, got up out of the chair and came over and like pulled her little like cash box out, put it on top of the table, and like started looking at me, like waiting for me to hand her money. And I'm just uh
Oh wow.
I'm just looking at it. She was like, "You said you were gonna take a book. It's $15." Like with that kind of like tone in her voice. Like, "You said you were gonna take a book. It's
Wow.
$15." And I'm like, "No, I said I was gonna take a look, but I'm gonna keep browsing. I'm just browsing." And I like put it down and
Right.
walked away because I was like, that was so aggressive. Oh my God.
Right. The whole time you were saying that, all I could hear is $15, little man. Put that shit in
If
my
if that money doesn't show, then you owe me, owe
yeah,
me, owe
oh
me.
me, oh. My jungle love. Oh shit.
Oh, we yo.
Oh my god. But yeah, I've definitely seen people like that at cons where they're just like super aggressive about it. It's like, dude, you can't be like that. Like, you're not going to make any sales. I remember, I don't know, this has kind of turned into con talk for a moment. But I remember one particular convention that Tara and I did. It was when Para Horror was still around. One of my favorite conventions. I miss it dearly. But one of the years that that Tara and I did it, we were tabled next to this guy who had. I mean, he was a good artist. Like, his art was good, but he had like a shitload of original paintings and like all of this stuff that was high priced. Like it was, it was like $100, $200. But again, it's an original painting. I get it. But most people that go to these conventions aren't looking to spend buku bucks on an original. Like maybe, $50, $60. Maybe, but most times they're looking for small stuff, prints, stickers, buttons, comics, things that they can afford that are under $20.
Yeah.
Um, so like we were getting tons of traffic, but again, Tara and I both do what we have our impulse items, which are like small dollar prints. So it's like, oh, you just want something to bring back to your friend. Here's a funny little picture for $1. You want something to hang on your wall here, $5 to $10, depending on the size. So it's all affordable things. So we were getting all this traffic, and this guy was getting more and more pissed the entire time. And like it got to a point like when people were like, "Oh, that's really cool. How much?" He was like, $100. It was just like, dude,
Oh,
like
damn.
calm the fuck down. Like, you're barking at these, and he wasn't making a sale, and it's like you can't have that type of attitude, man. Like, people are here to enjoy themselves, and when you're yelling at them, buy my stuff, like no one's gonna buy it. So that's what it reminded me of when you were telling me like $15. You said you were gonna take a book. I'm like, oh, yep, I've experienced that. Not fun.
Yeah, it's definitely very awkward. Yeah, yeah. I don't know how we got down this like side trail of talking about like convention experiences. This could probably be like its own episode all by itself. But yeah, but yeah, I just think like being at a convention, I kept thinking about it because even though I don't actually go to that many, I think it's exactly the
Mhm.
type of place where you have a chance to, experience both the negative and the positive sides of your fandom elitism,
Absolutely.
like I know you go to more horror events, probably a lot more horror events than I go, to comic events. I know you go to like, Thursday Night Terrors, for example, on a
Mhm.
pretty regular basis. And so when you're around, your people, I think that can both be really nice in the sense of like you have this camaraderie with the other
Mhm.
fans, but at the same time, you there's always those those bad fans, like the bad actors, the guys that we complain
Yep.
about, like it's like like you haven't learned how to be a snob yet. Like you got to learn the rules,
Well, and, and every fandom has them. Every single fandom. And I know, our friend Sam from Western New York Horror Crew. I know she would relate to this. How many fandoms like people will act elitist and sexist in, where it's like. Oh, you're a girl, you must read this type of comic, or oh, you're a girl, you must like this type of video game, or and it's like fuck all that shit. Like don't go down those elitist rabbit holes. Like yes, there is a point where you can be proud of your knowledge of a fandom, but don't be an elitist scumbag. just don't do it. It's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good way to wrap it up. It's yeah, I definitely enjoy the feeling that I have like achieved a higher level. Like I've leveled up, um,
Yes,
eh,
absolutely.
like a video game character with I've achieved all the collectibles and all the side quests, and I can enjoy the god power to run around the map and do whatever I want. um, but as I was saying before, like there's definitely a part of me that is like you still have to be nice. Like you got to use the thinking part of your brain. It's like
Hmm.
I might be judging you inside for what I perceive as your shallow and terrible taste in comics, but I'm, intelligent and, nice enough to keep that to myself. And, because ultimately, like we've always talked about before, like, we want more people in our fandoms. Like, I want more
Yes.
people to talk to about comics. I want more people who are at, my level or higher. Like, I want to learn more. Like, I want to go deep, in the mythology and like deep in the lore of and learn more. And, I think that's great. I want to be around other fans who can hold a conversation, at a level that is like stimulating. Like again, that sounds snobby, but at the same time, like everyone's got to start somewhere, you know?
Right. And 100%. And that's the thing. Like there's no crime against wanting to have those types of conversations because again with most of the horror fans that I deal with, I have the conversation where it's like recommend something scary to me. And it's like, well, what scares you? I don't know, recommend something scary. That's not a fun conversation. You want to be able to talk to people, be like, I know Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is panned by everybody, but here's why I like it. It's like you want to have those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. I remember being 15 years old and I got my dream job. I got to work at the House of Fantasy comic book store
Yes.
in Niagara Falls when I was 15 years old, under the table I would worked on Sundays and I basically just bagged and boarded back issues all day and, manned the register because it was like the quiet day and, the guy who owned the store, you remember Paul, like,
Oh yeah.
he basically worked every single day. And then I eventually got to work on Wednesdays and help out with like new comic book day. And I was like in heaven getting a chance to work there. But there was two other guys that worked there who were older than me. And, one of them, I think that and I'll mention it offline. Um, and he was much more, as an older person, was like much more accepting of me as like a punk kid,
Hmm.
working a part-time job. But there was the other guy who was basically the assistant manager or supervisor or whatever. And man, he was just such a jerk about everything. Like, and I don't know if he was just a jerk in general and just hated life or his existence, but I'm like, I don't know, dude. Like, you manage a comic book store, like you can't be, it can't be that bad, you know. And
Right.
and but I would always try to just like have a conversation with him while we were working together, because like you're sitting in a store, just the two of you, and there's no other customers in there, and it's like, so hey, like, what kind of comics do you read? Or eventually it turns into like, have you ever made a comic? Like, came up with a character? I mean, something, you just having a chit chat. Every conversation, he was just like, he would sigh heavily, like, like, no, like, I don't make up my own characters, and saying it in a way of like, oh, that's so childish and stupid. Obviously, you're so young and you don't understand the level that I'm at, like, reading all of my like, 60s counterculture underground comics that we have to sell behind the counter because they're full of nudity. And I'm like, all right, bro, like, you do you, I guess, but enjoy your miserable life.
Enjoy your spank bank material.
Yeah,
What the
exactly.
fuck?
Oh man. But anyway, so yeah, this definitely like, kind of went off topic, but yeah, I appreciate, I just, like I said, I just wanted to, metaphorically stand in front of the Snobs Anonymous meeting and just introduce myself. Hi, I'm here. You know,
I'm a snob too.
don't take it personally. Any last thoughts, Mike, on this topic?
Yeah, no, I think that it's pretty simple in the sense of just, you know, definitely take pride in what you like. There's nothing wrong with it, and you're always gonna have peers to chat to about this type of stuff. Like, obviously, I talk at length to our buddy Mike O'May about horror movies because he knows a lot more of the crazy underground weird shit that I haven't seen. So, like, I love hearing about that kind of stuff. So that when you were talking about like how you can learn from your other peers, I was like, there's a perfect example within our own crew. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like what you like, enjoy what you like, and you can be proud of that knowledge. Just don't be elitist to the point where you snub newcomers. I think that's the key takeaway. Don't snub newcomers. Welcome people into the fold. But maybe the people that are trying to snub newcomers, knock them down a peg.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck them, right? And
Yeah.
and just keep in mind too that like everything that people get snobby about was probably done for petty reasons at one point or another, right? Or was
Hmm.
probably lowbrow before it was highbrow. I was, we talk about like literary examples. I was like, dude, like Charles Dickens wrote chapter novels, like literally like one chapter at a time, and serialize them in like magazines and journals and stuff for money. There's a reason why David Copperfield is so fucking long. It's because the dude was getting paid by the word. Like, let's just keep that in mind, okay?
Yes, exactly.
So like, don't get your knickers in a twist over, like your highfalutin highbrow literature when there's a lot of shit, like that. I mentioned Mary Shelley, like, she wrote Frankenstein on a dare. So like, again,
Right.
like, just understand the context, ironically, the probably still to this day The one comic that like I think every comic book fan, highbrow, lowbrow, elite, brand new, underground, overground, doesn't matter. I think the one comic that I think everybody agrees on universally is like this is what real comics is fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 1986 black
Yeah.
and white comic that, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird put out that led to a gigantic franchise, largely geared
Hmm.
toward children, very shallow, eventually very corporate. But it all started with an underground independent comic that two dudes put out with like a loan from their uncle. And everybody thinks that those original comics are like comic book gold, and it's like just
Oh
again,
yeah.
just for balancing the scales, like the the fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon with the fucking cowabunga and pizza was inspired by like one of the most legit underground comics of all time.
I'm literally looking at Leonardo and Donatello standing on my desk as we speak. Um, so, also just a little side note about the Ninja Turtles. I still to this day love the fact that they called their studio Mirage Comics because they had no company. So
Yeah,
it was a mirage. I
yeah,
just love that tidbit. It's like I think that's fantastic. But I agree that that's one of those comics that like everybody can agree on. The original was this amazing indie underground hit. And yeah, everyone now knows them for Cowabunga and Pizza.
right. Sorry. Yeah. Apologies for the dings you just heard. That was my browser that I didn't realize was not muted, and it got picked up in the recording, I think. Um,
Oh, I didn't even hear it. So I
oh,
think
well,
you might be good.
hopefully I can just edit that part out, but if not, sorry about that. I was like looking up a comic book fact, and I'm like, oh shit, like my browser's making noise. Anyway, but yeah, so let's wrap it up right there. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming to the Snobs Anonymous meeting. Hopefully some more of you out there, feel the same way, and it's okay. Like, if you secretly harbor the same sort of judgmental opinions about other fans that we do, like it's okay. Like we'll talk about it. Like we'll get through it. Uh, we'll do it together. Like we're all in this together. We're all fans together. So yeah. Anyway, but if you're a snob and you're a douchebag about it, then like we've said in so many of our other rental rants about toxic fans, like you can just fuck right the fuck off and get out of here.
Exactly.
um,
In other words, don't be a douche.
don't be a douche. Real quick before we wrap up, Mike, holy shit,
Mhm.
the fucking last two episodes that we did are Rent One, Get One, Up All Night double feature special about with the return of the Venga Bus with 1 Week to Live and the return to Hot Garbage with Trash Mouth. Like, holy shit, those episodes were a fucking blast, man.
Oh God, I love doing those too, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback, especially on 1 Week to Live. I know Trash Mouth has only been out for what, a week now.
By the time this comes out, it might be a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard quite a bit of feedback on 1 Week to Live, but I'm very excited to hear what people think about Trash Mouth because I had a blast doing that. In fact, there's still a piece of art that I have in the back of my head that I thought up while we were discussing it, and I'm like, I want to draw it so bad. I just got to find time to actually sit down and draw it.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I was originally going to draw the thumbnail for Trash Mouth myself for the episode. And,
Mhm,
I've never drawn a thumbnail for one of our episodes. You've done multiple, right? Either
mhm.
a brand new drawing that you specifically did, like a Jurgen the Yuletide Adventure or
Yes.
Pancake Face. And then there's been at least one time where I just snipped out some old artwork that you had done, or actually, I think we've done that two or three times now, where we
Yeah.
we've grabbed old just drawings you did for fun for one reason or another that just seemed like they fit thematically. But I've never drawn one myself, and I was like gearing up to do it, but I ran into so many issues with the editing. Not really problems, but it was just like, ah, damn, it just took so long that I
Yeah.
just completely ran out of time. And I'm like, shit, I was literally like the day before it came out, and I wanted to get it out and didn't want to wait any longer because I've been trying to hit the Friday releases this season. And I was like, man, I just need a thumbnail. I need something. And Tegan and I actually sat here like looking around online trying to like come up with ideas, and we eventually came up with something fun. And anyone who's seen the thumbnail like knows what it is. And I remember I sent it to you, and then I immediately was like started explaining it, like, oh, like it's just still from this movie. And you were like, yeah, yeah, dude, I know. Like, I'm like, okay, see, exactly, exactly. Because
I was even telling you about the next episode. I'm like, dude, it's this other one. It's really fucking good. It's got the dude from class of 1999. Why can't I think of his name? Off the Stacy Keach.
yeah,
It's got Stacy Keach in it.
I know, and like, and that was, and I mentioned it now because as we were kind of formulating the idea for this episode, I'm like, see, that's a perfect example where I was like, oh, dude, like I found this really cool old horror movie from the '90s, and you were like, oh, dude, you don't even know, it's got this guy, and they did this other one, and I'm like, exactly, exactly. Of course, you knew exactly. You saw a single still from a movie, and you were like, oh, that's that scene with Mark Hamill, and I'm like,
Yes. Oh my god. And because again, I have a strong affinity for anthology movies that as we've discussed, that I was like, John Carpenter, Mark Hamill, Stacy Keach, fuck yeah.
exactly.
Like,
Yeah, I know, right? And then I went down the same rabbit hole of like, oh, I love anthology comics. I've got hundreds of them. Like, oh my God, you can make my fucking day with an anthology comic. Like a 200-page book that's got like 20 short stories by a bunch of random people. Oh fuck, I know what I'm doing tonight.
exactly.
But anyway, yeah. So I hope everyone enjoyed those. Like initially, I was like, oh, like we should find out like who won. Like you know,
Right?
because if you remember back when we did the first installment with the Venga Bus of Death and Hot Garbage, it was like it was an unofficial competition to see like who could come up with like the most ridiculous but successful idea.
Right.
um,
And we did hear from quite a few of our listeners. Like, I know Omei was very, very strong on the hot garbage side, which I totally get, because that is right in his wheelhouse of like Frank Henenlotter type of horror. So I was like, oh yeah, if he doesn't love this, I don't know what's going on. Because of course it fits so well,
yeah.
you know. But then I also heard from Brian and Corey about how much they liked the Vengabus. So it was like we were getting a lot of good feedback on those.
Yeah, yeah, I totally
So.
agree. I think it was like a little bit neck and neck, and I was like, maybe Hot Garbage took it by a nose, maybe. But then when we did the second
Mhm.
part with Bad Rubbish and Enter Cotton Eye Joe, and I heard fucking crickets about Bad Rubbish. I was like so disappointed because I was like, oh, I liked that one, but like I didn't hear shit. And then
Yeah.
you and I were both kind of like, oh, I don't know, Enter Cotton Eye Joe like wasn't the best. Like we kind of made a couple mistakes. We were kind of down on ourselves about it, but like I don't know, dude. Like, I think it just like won hands down because I didn't hear fucking shit about Bad Rubbish. I was like, fuck,
Right.
maybe the title is like apropos. Fuck. So I don't know.
I would be curious for our listeners. Hey, if you listened to both One Week to Live and Trash Mouth, let us know what you think. Because again, I can't really pick a favorite when we do these, because I always have fun for different reasons with each of them. Because it is fun from a creative standpoint to not know where the other one is going. So like
Hmm.
with that type of a challenge, like obviously yes, we both talked about it. Like you knew ahead of time that I was going to be trying to make a story with 1 week from the Bare Naked Ladies. But you didn't really know what I was going to do. So like that whole opening, I'm just throwing it at you and you were just like, "What the fuck?" So, and then same thing with Trash Mouth. Like I knew the name, and I knew that there was going to be a monster movie, but I didn't know what you had planned. So sometimes it's really fun creatively to be given those prompts and then just be like, okay, go. And it's like, oh
Hmm.
shit, what do I do? Let me play with the toys in the toolbox, Um, so it's I don't know which one I had more fun making. I love doing those episodes, and hopefully we can do more like that in the future. I don't know if we have any more sequels in us for either the trash demon or the cursed music, but maybe, who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. No, I totally agree. This is definitely like the snob in me now that I'm putting on my improv snob hat to just be like, we're so good. You guys should all tell us how good we are. No, but no, like legitimately, I'm just really curious to hear what people think, and it's a very like needy part of me that does want the validation of like, please tell us what you think, please. I need your praise,
Exactly.
you know. um,
Plus, we would love to do, at the end of the year, we've kind of made it a habit to do kind of a year in review episode, or at least a
Hmm.
year in review section of an episode. And it's fun for those to like kind of look back and be like, these are the topics, or these are the episodes that got the most feedback, or these are the things that people said they liked the most, which kind of led to this entire year. Our entire lineup for this year was returning to things that either people told us that they liked, we had ideas for, that we kept talking about and never produced. So it was like this year we kind of just were like, all right, let's lean into that. Let's lean into what people want or what we want, and we'll do all the stuff. And we've been doing that, and it's been a really fun season. Like
Yeah.
we've got we've got a lot of things under our belt this season that we've been meaning to do for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, and mentioning the angle of leaning into like the listener response too, because yeah, I exactly. You know, I mentioned it a few times before that we were trying to like do like the next installment in whatever series of this or that all season, but you know, even going back to Weekend at Bitey's, which was like, hey, that was
Hmm.
something that you guys like told us that you wanted to hear, like it's something that we had talked about, and you guys voted on it. So yeah, I mean, I think there's probably even more episodes this year than I even realize that are directly tied into listener feedback. So yeah, season 4 is definitely like the viewer's choice, season, I think.
Right.
um, so yeah, no, that's definitely awesome. So yeah, absolutely. Like, let us know. We'll do some kind of a recap at the end of this year, just like we have done in previous years, like Mike, to your point, and we'll see. There is
Hmm.
there is one series that we might actually get to a fourth installment, but we'll see. We'll
Hmm.
see if we can squeeze it in this year. I think it would be a great, addition to all of the other installments we've had, where we've added to existing, Raised by Rentals franchise or sub series. So it'll be cool if we could get to that fourth one for the first time ever. But
Yep.
we'll see. That might turn into a season 5 opener based on schedules. But I have my fingers crossed.
Oh yeah, yeah, and we it's one of those things. We've thrown a couple of ideas at each other, so we at least have a starting point to jump off of. I think it could be done. And I know we have concepts for part fours of other series, but it might be time to put certain series to bed and do spin-offs.
Yeah. Yep.
We have discussed a spin-off of one franchise that we've created, and I'm looking very forward to it. Um, and I will say this, I will say, at least with the Vengabus saga and with the Hot Garbage saga, I feel like those are kind of, I don't want to say flagship because we didn't create those early on in the running of Raised by Rentals, but they kind of have become almost flagship titles where people, that at least when they talk to me about the show, those get brought up a lot. Um, I know we could do more if we wanted to, but I'd also be interested to see if we could do a spin-off of them. So it might be
Hmm.
something, might be food for thought for the future. And if you guys want to hear more of stuff from this season, like I know several people were very heavily into Space Vietnam. We
Yeah.
got a lot of great feedback on that.
I
If
love
you
that
want to
one.
see more R-rated Star Wars fare, let us know, because I got ideas.
Yeah, yeah, I know for sure for you that's definitely in your wheelhouse. Like, yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that the Vengabus and Hot Garbage series they become sort of like a flagship, or sort of, they're prominent brands for us and they go back to season 2. I don't think that's too bad. I mean, think about how many TV shows out there just didn't hit their stride until the second season. That sometimes
That's a good point.
right, sometimes the first season is a little bit of a struggle to figure out what you're doing, and then you just like capture that magic in the second season, and then you go from there. So, maybe the same was true for us. But anyway, actually, the main reason why I even brought him up now, even so much not even talking about the feedback, but of course, please love us,
Right.
uh, is I watched Scream the other day with Tegan, and it dawned on me that I've known this information, but it dawned on me that, man, that opening, like, what is it, like 10 or 12 minutes, the opening scene with Drew Barrymore in the first Scream
Hmm.
is such a perfect little scene. And I've always realized what a strong scene it is and like what it does for the movie. Like, it's such a perfect setup. But the thing I realized this time, duh, is I was like, you know what? Just turn the movie off. Because Tegan and I didn't put the movie on to watch it. We put it on because Tegan was folding laundry and I was doing dishes. It was like, just put something on. And we watched it. And then we both like finished what we were doing by the time that, Casey was dead. And we were like, shit, you could just turn it off right now. You don't need to watch the rest of the movie. You just saw a whole movie in like 12 minutes, you know? And
Yep.
it's like, what a perfect little horror mini. And then, thinking about the last couple episodes with One Week to Live and Trash Mouth, and I'm not saying we're at the level of of Scream, but like I thought it was really cool that both of those stories, sort of out of necessity, they started with like a pre-planned scene, but both of those opening
Mhm.
sequences with butt naked Jake or buck naked Jake,
Yes.
and and with the origin of Tessie Trashmouth, like they're both like these like fun little scenes that just hit us like a lightning out of nowhere. And then like it's like you were talking before about how I didn't know anything, and yeah, the whole time I'm like, oh cool, like we're gonna tell a story about like buck naked Jake, and he's like back for revenge or something, and I'm like, wait, he's not even in the rest of this story, like what the fuck,
Yes.
you know?
He was the cold open, and that's
Yeah.
it.
But it's so great because you make this like perfect like little mini movie, and
Hmm.
with Trash Mouth, obviously Tessie was in the rest of the movie, but for me the whole thing was like I just want to tell this origin story. I don't even care what happens. The only thing I said was, there's got to be a monster who kills a bunch of people. Like that's all I want. I don't care. Like do whatever you want. I don't give a shit. I just want to tell the opening story.
And that's the fun of these improvs is like we just sometimes we'll just have a particular scene, and it's like what can we build off of that. But to be fair, and I know we got to wrap this up, but to be fair, that's how we used to write comic books. Like when you and I first started writing comic books together, a lot of times it was one of us would come up with a scene and we would create a story around that scene. I mean, look at Upai. Upai was created because you had a scene about a cornstalk mummy, and then you came up with an idea for an evil teddy bear, and it was like, what can we do with that? And then we built off of it and built this insane 70-page epic.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Actually, that's funny you mentioned it. Yeah, Upai does have a whole like it has a whole opening sequence that's like a little horror story that's not even funny really and doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the book. I mean, other than the fact that the corn monster shows up again, but like in a you wouldn't believe he was the same character when he shows back up because he's like so goofy. But anyway,
right.
yeah. Anyway, we've gone completely off the rails with this one, so like let's bring it home. Let's wrap it up. I appreciate it, everyone, for tuning in once again to the Raised by Rentals program. As usual, you can always find us online at raisedbyrentals.com, at Raised by Rentals on the socials. Check out radpantheon.com for a super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, a whole art collective of creative friends supporting each other to spread the gospel of rad stuff. Check out at Red Pantheon on all the socials. What about you, Mike? Anything you want to share?
Well, yeah, the Boogeyman's Closet should be back up and running by the time you hear this. We had some massive hiccups with scheduling and then sound issues due to our new setup with OBS, because I screwed up one little thing and I fucked an entire episode. But so we should be coming back with semi-regular episodes. I don't know if it will be once a week as we used to do, or if it'll be like 2 or 3 times a month, but we are definitely coming back with very regular episodes starting this with the week that we're recording this. So by the time you hear this, there will be regular episodes coming again. And then of course there's always Count Creepyhead's Saturday Morning Monster Mash, where three grown man children talk about toys, muppets, and pop culture.
Yes, always a good time. Always a good time. Like, yeah, and I've said it before. To me, it's always amazing to me as someone who does not collect toys. I'm always like, I like. I look forward to that podcast like so much. Like whenever you guys like skip a week, I'm like, oh, like where's my creepy head? And it's like, even though there's always like 40% of the episode, it's like let's talk about the toy news, like what's coming out, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like get back to talking about like ghosts in jars and like dicks and stuff. Like
it is really funny how that podcast originally for the first episode we briefly entertained the idea of, oh, this is going to be an all ages show. So we weren't swearing, we were trying really hard, and now we're just like hanging dong in every episode.
Right, exactly. Oh man.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm glad you're back with the Boogeyman's Closet. Like, how you've done what, like 500 fucking episodes? Like, have you ever like
Oh.
lost a recording before? Like, is this a first?
We there's been 2 episodes where we had to redo. There was one where we just had a fuck ton of sound issues to the point where, like, and it was happening throughout the recording where we were noticing it. So I was just like, you know what, fuck it, let's stop. We'll get back together and record later, because there was some headset issues. So we had to replace the headsets, and then it was like, all right, now we can, everyone can hear, everyone's recording properly. So we had that one, and then we had another one where we had dropped calls that kept happening. There was just a bad connection for whatever reason, and throughout the entire episode, the call kept dropping. So we're like, you know what? Stop it. We're gonna get together and record another day. This was during COVID, so it was like we'll figure this out. So yeah, there's only been 2 where we caught it halfway through the episode and just had to start over on another day. This was the first time where we recorded an episode, thought everything was great, and then I went to go edit, and I'm like, motherfucker, the whole thing is shot.
Oh God, that sucks. It's been a lot of episodes. I mean, you've got 289 on Podbean right now, but like I know you've got ones that are older that have like dropped off the feed, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's definitely, I don't even know the exact number because I wish I never did this, but when I started off, I wasn't counting the specials as numbered episodes. It was like, Friday the 13th special or Christmas special, or so there's and then like birthday episodes, like I wasn't counting them as regular episodes. So it was like, here's your 4 episodes in the month, and then here's your special. And the main reason I started doing that was because I could easily keep track of the number, like this is episode 16, because okay, well, we already did 4 last month, so okay, so this, oh yeah, I can keep track because it's easy in increments of 4. But I stopped doing that, so I was like, well, fuck, I wish I had have counted these. So I know I'm well over 300 episodes at this point. Like, God, we're probably close to 400. I'll have to one of these days I'll have to go in and actually count them all. But yeah, we have quite a few. I mean, we've been doing it since 2019. So, and from 2019 at least until 2024, we were very regularly posting 4 episodes a month at least. And then I want to say 2022 to 2024, we would take a 1 month break in spring and a 1 month break in fall. So we would take April off, and then we would take November off each year. But both months we also would put out a random special. So it was like,
Yeah.
well, it wasn't completely off. And then 2024 we took a break because of scheduling issues, and it was like a 6 month break. And then when we came back, it was very herky jerky. It was like we came back, we were able to put out like 2 episodes, and then we're like, all right, we got 4 episodes, and then it was like 2 episodes, and then 1 episode, and then 3 episodes, and it was like, fuck, we couldn't get back on track. So the last year or so, the episodes haven't been releasing regularly, which is something that frustrates me because, you know how I am, kind of
Hmm.
anal retentive about scheduling. Um, so
Yeah, and I'm the same way. For me, I have to have a deadline or I can't get things done. That's why I was talking about like with the trash mouth like thumbnail. Like I could have stopped and just drew it, but I was like, no, like I really want to get this episode out this Friday because I had given myself this arbitrary deadline and like I had to meet it. But that's the only way I'll ever get anything done. Because if it's just open-ended,
same.
like I'll just procrastinate forever. Like we never would have heard one episode, let alone the fact that we're recording episode 104 right now. Like,
Right.
uh,
Which is just fucking crazy to me that this has not only gone on as long as it has, but it's ramping up, and that makes me excited.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think we're recording and releasing fewer episodes every season, but I feel like the episode quality is really strong and like we're really planning ahead, and we've had fewer situations where we've just been like fuck it, record something, and then like we get stuck or we're frustrated with it or
Hmm.
whatever. Like we've had those two kind of almost crash and burns last season, and I feel like this season has been so much more solid because we're just like, you know what, like just take the pressure off and just do fun stuff and don't worry about it. But anyway, yeah, I feel your pain on the episode renumbering it, and like I would have, if it were me, I would have just been like fuck it and went back and renumbered everything because I did that with this show, but with your show it would have been a hell of a lot like harder to go back and renumber because there's so many more. But like
Hmm.
I was doing the same thing at first, like taking a cue from you because I hadn't done a podcast before and you'd done already several, so I was like taking a cue. And our rental rants and super gushers originally weren't numbered either. It was just the improvs that were episode number whatever. And then at a certain point, I was like, this is like hard to keep track of, and it's like a little bit weird. So I was like, fuck it. Which is why the episodes jumped from 26 to 37 at season two, because I was just like, well, fuck it. We're just gonna count all those other ones retroactively.
Did you change it on the feed so they're edited on the feed, or did you just start counting them differently going forward?
Yeah, this is the real behind the scenes shit that I hope that the real Raised by Rentals fans are sticking around for. The ones that make it all the way to the end of the recording, even though we started doing our like outro blurb already. But yeah, I went back and I edited the feed. I went back and I took all. I edited all of the titles. Originally, the improv episodes were titled like episode one, Christmas the 13th, episode two, etc. And then when we did the rental rant specials, like for example, it would say like rental rant one, remake, reuse, recycle. Rental rant two, all filler, no killer. So instead,
Ah, I got
I just took all reference to the episode numbers or the rental rant numbers off, and so I just go by, Podbean counts my episodes, or I mean, I have my own list because I'm a nerd. I have a spreadsheet, obviously. But yeah, we just go from there, and I don't really care. So like, I know how many improv improves we've done, and I know how many rental rants and super gushers redone. Like this episode is going to really fuck me up because it's both rental rant 18 and super gushers number 8 at the same time. But like whatever. But yeah, so I did go back and hey, here's a little bit of extra trivia too. While we're at it, I don't think I even told you because this is usually me at 2 o'clock in the morning going like, "Fuck it, no one's even gonna know." And I've actually changed the title of 3 of our episodes after the fact. Like, I've done it 3 times, mostly in the early days because I was just getting a feel for it, figuring shit out. So yeah, actually, our fourth episode ever, which is Nightmares on Elm Streets, where Nightmare and Elm Street are both plural words. But when I first put the episode out, it was just called Nightmares on Elm Street, but street was singular. And it wasn't until after I listened to our own episode a couple of times that I realized we literally had Freddy go to multiple Elm Streets in different towns across America.
Yep.
So why aren't both of those words plural? It would have been so much more like appropriate. So I just went back and changed it. And every single time I've ever referenced it since then, I've just said it plural and I've never mentioned the difference until right now. uh,
That's awesome.
and then I did the same thing with Summer School 2, The Dave and Chainsaw Massacre, which is our 25th episode, where it was originally called what I just said, Summer School 2, The Dave and Chainsaw Massacre. And then at some point, for some reason, I was like, no, I don't want to reference the original property. It's just The Dave and Chainsaw Massacre. So I took the Summer School 2 part off, and it was gone for a while until I realized after the fact that it makes people searching for the episodes like so much easier if you're like trying to find something if I put the original property title in the title of the episode. So I put it back. And what was the third time was, oh, it was the and this is for the same reasons why when we first put out our sequel to the Super Mario Brothers movie, originally it was just called Plumber Time Blues, but I went back and added Super Mario Brothers 2 Plumber Time Blues because I was like, I probably should add the property that people know about to the title in case they want to search for it, you know? But anyway, that's all the behind the scenes trivia that we probably should have saved for our like year end review episode. So like I guess when we get to that one, we'll be even more long winded and pedantic about stupid little details. So I hope everyone's ready for that.
I know I am.
Oh man. So anyway, let's wrap this up. I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for spending time with me. I can smell dinner cooking in the other room, so I am gonna get out of here. Thanks once again to everyone who tuned in to the Raised by Rentals program. If you had fun with us, visit us on those socials, drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a podcast rating, leave a long-winded rant about some stupid opinion you have about one of our episodes where some tiny little detail that we mentioned offended you or you wanted to correct us because we're such fucking know-it-alls, but we don't know everything and you're going to put us in our place. We want to hear it from you. And don't forget to let us know what we should improve next episode. I'm Josh.
Mike.
And we have to return some videotapes. Raised by Rentals is a member of the Rad Pantheon Network. Visit radpantheon.com to support rad stuff. The theme music is Forbidden Fruit by Velvet Bethany. You can purchase music and learn more at velvetbethany.com.
Does he know anything?
Sure, man. He's elite.